Welcome to the Landlording Show. I am your host, Tim Harstead, and today we have special guest Robin Nicole with Robin Nicole Interiors. Robin, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much, Tim, for having me. I'm very happy to be here today.
Awesome. So wanted to talk to you. So Robin is an expert on interior design and wanted to give our listeners an idea of some of the latest trends. And first, if you can tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your company and what you guys do for people.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. So I have been in the industry for 15 years. My background primarily is luxury residential, commercial design, retail, and I'm currently now in office design. And I've done this from very small scale projects to very large scale projects, and it's something that I've been doing, like I said, for quite a long time now, and very comfortable with doing it and working with clientele and basically just getting to meet that client, seeing, really what they're looking for, what they need out of the project, and basically just providing all of that and some to them.
If I'm an investor and I'm deciding whether I'm doing a rehab, I'm deciding whether I should hire an interior designer. What do you think are some things to think about on if I should reach out and get help or if I should be doing it myself?
So the main reason that you're going to want to reach out to an interior designer is for the reason that an interior designer does a lot more than picking paint colors or fabric swatches. That's basically like the last few things that we do, right? That kind of don't require too much effort or too much think time, but more or less we spend our time project managing, making sure that we have everything accounted for that we need, right? So if this is your first real estate investment project and you don't know what you're doing, I would highly suggest hiring an interior designer. And the reason for that, as I just mentioned, is because an interior designer, what that title means actually, and one of the many things that we do under that title, first and foremost, would be a project manager. So we come on site, we're making sure everything is being done. We're working with the architect. We create that collaboration. We bring in the architect, space plan with the architect. Then once we have finalization, our drawings are stamped, they're ready to move forward, then we can start working with our contractor, right? And once we're working with our contractor, there has to be site visits, depending on how long the project is determined to take before it's complete. We want to make sure that we're performing site visits on a weekly basis, sometimes even multiple times on a weekly basis. So we might want to step out maybe 3 to 4 times a week and ensure that the drawings, everything that we designed is being implemented into the space the way that we designed it. So when I'm going out to these site checks and I'm meeting with the contractor, I'm going through the space and say, for example, we're in the kitchen and we've got custom cabinetry here, and then we've got a backsplash layout that's just a little indifferent. So we want to make sure that we're specifying the correct tile border around, and we also want to make sure that we have the correct tile specified in the center. So basically that's what I'm coming out to do, right? I'm coming out to make sure that the contractor's doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And if there is a mistake, I can catch it early on versus it's already done. Well, if you want, I can rip it out and we can start over and you can pay again, right? But if you have a designer coming out there and they're frequently checking on everything, you just have way more better chances of a successful project in the end game versus kind of trying to figure everything out yourself and putting together schedules. It's really hard, in my opinion, to do something that you've never done before. So I would highly suggest working with an interior designer, working closely with them, seeing how they work. And if you want to take on the next project after that independently, try. But I would also suggest, again, continuing to work with the designer and incorporate them in their projects and maybe take off some of that load, right? So Now that
Yep.
you might have an architect, so now I don't need to source one for you. Just little things like that. But I definitely think it's very important to include an interior designer on your projects just for the ease of it.
Awesome, awesome. And as a contractor, I can say things like this, but a lot of contractors are very good at trying to get things done. They're trying to meet a timeline, and oftentimes the little details that are probably most important when the end project comes around, they get skipped and they get forgotten. Can you name maybe one or two examples of a time that a contractor almost messed up that you had to sort of fix, or I guess some of the more common ways that contractors don't follow the drawings?
Yeah, so I've got a really great one for that, actually. So one of our properties here in Chicago, in the Kenwood area, we did a gut and rehab in the bathroom. We did all new tile, and we did it on the floors and we did it on the walls, right? So this bathroom's a lot smaller. It's a condominium property. So I'm trying to make this bathroom, and it's in the master bedroom, trying to make it as grand as possible. So what I did is, instead of specifying smaller tiles, we're going to go with longer, wider tiles, right? Because anything that we create in the space to make it look larger is using larger things, makes things look more grand, more luxury. So instead of doing a simple 6-inch by 6-inch tile, we're going to do an 8-inch high by a 15-inch long, right? So we're placing these tiles in the master shower, and I have an idea of the way I want them to look. So I want them laid out horizontal, but I also do want them not in a more of kind of like random staggered look, right? So, and as contractor, we have a language barrier. Okay. So I'm coming out there, I've got my drawings, and we are not on the same page. Okay. He's saying to like cut all these pieces, and the whole reason that, I went for the longer tile was to give a more luxury look to the space. So we were able to talk together, look at the images, the CAD drawings that I had put together, which are to scale drawings of the space, and go over visually back and forth, showing him with the images that I have, the expectations of what I'm looking for. Now, I met with him before he started laying anything out, because right away I knew there was a language barrier, and with my experience, that's all it is in this industry, is like you're going to work with contractors that don't speak English, and that's just what it is. And you have to learn how to work with them and how to work around that. And the best way to do that is to have images and pictures. And once you have those images and pictures, and all numbers are all the same, so if all the dimensions are called out on the sheet, it's very easy for the contractor to confirm, and if they have questions, to come back to me. So before, as I mentioned, he had started laying anything out, I'm there, we're going over the details, this is how it needs to look, then he starts laying it out while I'm there. I wait till he does one entire wall. Once I know it looks good, we're on the right path, and I'm like, all right, we're good to go. Okay, so now we're turning, now we're going down the next wall. That next wall has a windowsill on it. So I wait till he gets to the windowsill, he's going, he's fine, everything's staggered, we're not cutting any pieces. And if we are cutting, it's very minimal, like an inch off. So once we come to the windowsill, he tells me like the procedure, what his thoughts are, what he's going to do. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to need a sluter strip here to cap it off. Explains it. We go through it. I draw it. We're on the same page. Let's go. Move forward, and it's done. So really the most important thing is having that communication with your contractor, right? And it's not about just sometimes like listening to them, but it's also reiterating what they're telling you, right? So if my contractor's saying, this is how you want it done, A, B, and C, I'm going to say, yes, I want A this way, B this way, and C this way. I'm reiterating back to the contractor what my expectations are. Now, at that point in time, if that contractor is not on the same page, they're going to say, oh, I didn't understand that, or that's not what I'm thinking, or that's not what I pulled from the conversation, you know it? And then it's like, okay, let me create some drawings. Let's get on the same page. What do we have to do to move forward? And really it's about addressing, simple communication.
Awesome. Great story. So you mentioned the bigger tiles help to create a grander bathroom or kitchen or things like that. What are some other upgrades or things that you can do to make a small space look bigger? Because I know it's often, especially in Chicago, some of these older buildings, I don't know what people in the 1920s slept in or what they kept their clothes in, but the rooms look like they can fit a crib in them. And any ideas on some other ways that you might want to make those look bigger without tearing down walls?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the main things that you can do, as I mentioned, so instead of doing smaller tiles, we'll do larger, right? And instead of taking our tile design, for example, say we're working with tile right now, we're not going to go horizontal. We're going to flip them and we're going to make the tile vertical because we're going to elongate the space, right? So we don't have wide space, but we can make our ceilings look taller, okay? So another thing that we can do to make a space look larger is we're going to build up, right? At the end of the day, and that's typically what they do in New York because they don't have a lot of square footage, but they do have ceiling height, so they build up. So they have a lot of great storage options that are a lot of like custom built-in shelving, which is really, really nice. And it can definitely change a space and the way that it looks. And also like other great little things that you can do to a space too. If you're thinking about rehabbing your kitchen and you have good bones in your cabinetry, like it's oak cabinets, there's no need to completely rip them out. You can sand them down and you can paint them and you can order new hardware and get some inexpensive countertops, and it completely revamps the space with some new backsplash and flooring.
Awesome. So speaking of countertops, I think if we go back like 5 years, the fake granite was going into all the apartments, and then the world sort of upgraded, and now to have an apartment that's going to rent quickly, for a while it was granite. What are you seeing now in terms of trends that you're seeing into apartments? I feel like there's in the last couple of years there's been more and more, at least counter types and stone types that have been more prominent and that have been coming to light that I didn't really necessarily know people even knew about. But what are you seeing as trends when it comes to countertops?
I would say it just really depends too on your class of renters. I've been seeing a lot of man-made material just because it's a lot more cost effective. And when I say man-made, I'm referring to like laminates, just because laminates can easily be replaced. And laminates now, they just have so many amazing options. I mean, they've got laminates that have wood grain laser etched in them. So it looks like actual wood material, but it's a laminate, and it's a very cost effective material, and it does hold up and it's easy to replace, which is really nice. I've also seen in my projects personally that I specify, my background is luxury residential, so I really like the natural porous stones, which is going to be more of like a granite, which are not the best for renters just because depending on like your class that you're renting to and the way that it withstands and what it can withhold, it's just not as durable as a man-made product. So it's something that I would suggest just to stay away from because it can be very costly. And as I mentioned, the stone is porous. So what porous means is that if you spill something on top of a white granite countertop, say you spill some red Hawaiian punch on there and you leave it there for 3 days, the stone will suck up that Hawaiian punch and it will leave a red stain, and it is almost impossible to get it out. I've heard of stories where we've had to, and I've actually ran into situations like this where we've contemplated like just removing that slab of that counter and replacing it with a new slab because we could not get the spot out. And I did the research, had someone professional come out to clean it, tried cleaning it myself. So I would definitely stay away from natural products unless it's, obviously for personal. Just a lot more cost effective and easier to go with a man-made laminate or stone.
Are we getting to the point on the countertop? So I remember 10 years ago, LVP was terrible. Like there's so many apartments we take over that has this LVP from, this is 5, 10 years ago where they put this LVP in, and it might have just been, it was just vinyl plank back then, I think, but water would get on it and peel. And now we look at LVP, and I mean, it's a premier product that is harder to damage for the tenants. It looks almost exactly like, hardwood floors. If you don't really know what you're looking for, you're not going to tell the difference. Are we there yet with laminate counters where you can get a laminate counter and the untrained eye won't really understand the difference?
Oh yeah, definitely. Without a doubt. The product that is available now, it's going to be more expensive too. It's still going to cost less than all natural product, but you could never, to the untrained eye, you would never be able to tell.
What do you think that price difference is in terms of, like, just give me just pick a slab of granite and a slab of this laminate that's at the same size. What do you think price difference wise?
Like a sheet of laminate can be anywhere from $100 to $400, and a sheet at 4 feet by 8 feet, right? And that's typically how laminate sheets are cut and placed. And if you're looking at a granite slab, you're looking at about a couple $1,000s for a slab that size, at least like $5,000-$6,000.
That's a huge difference, and it sounds like they'll probably last, if not just as long, probably longer, just because it's harder for the tenants to really ruin them with them being porous and everything with the granite.
Yeah, and also too, like laminates, they're treated. So they're meant to handle high heat. They're meant to handle spills, scratches, stains, and it's not going to be as damaging to the product as it would be if you were doing a natural stone or a natural product. It's just a lot more man-made products. Though they are not the best for the environment, they hold up a lot longer. And, things with sustainability for me is always a first and foremost too. So once you decide to start applying like laminates to your projects, you can always what I've seen is people, what you don't use, you can donate, or you can, store for a future time. But more or less, I've seen a lot of like donating. So anything that you don't use, there's no need to discard. You can always donate. And there's so many sites too, like Facebook Marketplace, where you could just give it away if you didn't want it, and somebody could take it and utilize it for a smaller project if they need it.
Nice. Are you on? Do you find a lot of things? I was watching Magnolia Channel with my wife yesterday. They're always going to these different vintage shops and really just like advanced garage sales. You brought up Facebook Marketplace. You find anything there ever that you've used in a flip or a turn? Have you had any luck like that, or better ideas to find used things or things that people are giving away?
I am actually a huge antiquer. I've been antiquing for I want to say like 30 years. It's been a really long time. And I pull many, many, many things from antique shops into my projects. So a lot of times the properties that I invest in Chicago South Side or Kenwood, Hyde Park area, they are, especially the Kenwood Hyde Park area, there's a lot of architecture that was originally built in the 1850s. So with that, when we come in and we're buying property here, our main goal is to restore the pre-existing, right? So I'm going to try to come in and restore that door. We're going to add a brass kick plate at the bottom of it. We're going to go antiquing for some new brass doorknobs. We can antique for a transom window above the door. There's so many things that you can find and utilize in antiques. And even it's a great idea for you to go out and to check it out if that is something that you're interested in, because it also does to open the horizon for a lot more ideas. Sometimes things that you maybe would not have thought of until you actually come across something and it sparks something in you. But yeah, I've been antiquing for many, many years, and I pull a lot of great pieces from that. And also too, because the things that you find can be sometimes at a quarter of the cost in comparison to you buying it brand new.
Nice. Are you finding more stores like Chicagoland area, or I feel like, and I don't do it a lot, but I do enjoy walking around those stores. And a lot of times when we're driving up to Michigan or Wisconsin, we see a lot. But where are you finding these stores that are getting good luck?
So the best ones that I go to, I would say if you're in Illinois, a great place to start would be Deerfield, Illinois. They have amazing antique shops there, really great. And then also too, like Wisconsin, they're going to have the best, because really, like in Michigan too, like any of those places that have more, like the people have been on the, probably own that property for generation after generation, that's where you find the really great stuff. And typically it's a country house that's been in the family for 200 years, and they've unfortunately moved on and they're not going to reside anymore there. And they've got 200 years worth of things to sell. And I mean, I've seen things that you're just like, oh, that's what that is, so it's like very interesting, like understanding, discovering the history. Really, really great experience. Highly suggest that if anybody has time on a Saturday. I usually make a whole Saturday out of it.
Nice. The other thing you mentioned in the kitchen was painting cabinets or repainting or refinishing cabinets versus buying new. Any tips on that in terms of special paint that you're using, or tips to make them last longer? I know I've seen some people do it where it turns out beautiful, and I've seen other people where they try to do it and like a week later it looks like it's peeling. Any tips to prevent that?
Yeah, so typically the reason why it's probably peeling is because they didn't, it needs to be sanded down first, and it needs to be stripped. And once that process is complete, the paint should adhere to that, like putting lotion on skin. It should suck right into it. It shouldn't peel off or anything like that. And typically you want to go in with a couple coats of paint, right? And anywhere from like 2 to 4, sometimes depending on the color, maybe even 6 coats. And you really want to use the good quality. Yeah, it just depends on what paint you're going with. If it's, more on like a lighter, or if it has a darker hue to it, just because you need enough coats so that you can't see through, especially if those pre-existing cabinets were oak cabinets. So you don't want to see any wood grain coming through. And then also it's very, very important that you use a manufacturer that stands behind their product. And a manufacturer that stands behind their product is Benjamin Moore. Benjamin Moore has been around for a very long time. And their product, if there's anything wrong with the paint, even if you've opened it, you sealed it up, you go to open it 6 months later and it's dried up, they'll replace it for you. I mean, like, they really, truly do stand behind their product. And that's why I specify them for basically every single project that I do, because they take care of my client. And at the end of the day, happy client makes you happy, so it's just really important to make sure you're incorporating like the best of the best when you are putting together your presentations or you're completing projects, even, whether it be on a larger scale or a smaller scale. It's important to give every project just as much attention and good product investment, right? So, and we really want to do that because it keeps the client happy at the end of the day. And also too, once they have, people coming over and seeing their new cabinets, they can talk about it, understand why, because you can also have somebody come in and give an opinion like, oh, you paid that much. And well, yeah, I paid that much. And I paid that much because it takes 6 layers of paint to paint these cabinets. And we could have gotten, hardware for $2 a knob, but I decided I wanted something a little nicer. So I spent $15 a knob on the hardware, and it's my home. So I decided to do that, so it's like all these little things just to, once I feel like you educate the person and the client and give them all this information, it helps them to be more savvy and to basically, like, you're kind of protecting your client and teaching them if somebody comes at them like, oh, I can't believe you spent that much money, they have a reason why they did. So they don't have to come back to you later and say, you know what, I'm kind of regretting it. Like, I don't know why I spent all this money, or maybe I don't want to do that next time. Instead, that doesn't even happen. What's going to happen is, well, my client's going to say, well, Robin told me, this is the process, this is what we had to go through, and this is why it costs what it does. Can we reduce that cost? Sure. But maybe we're going to reduce how many layers of paint that we put on that cabinetry, and we'll do 3. And if 3's enough, you let me know. And if it's not, we can come back and add more. But it's always about being upfront with your client, because when you're upfront with your client and you build that trust, it's a really great relationship to have, because they depend on you. And that's definitely where you want to be with your client. You want them to feel that they can trust you and go to you and not have to, pull back or second think anything that they're telling you.
Absolutely. So you brought up Benjamin Moore, so I guess we'll get into colors. What are you seeing? I know for a while, blue was, there was research that if you were painting your bathroom blue, it would sell for 5% more. If you were to be doing a flip right now and trying to attract someone to buy, what type of colors or what type of paint colors or anything on that side that you think that is becoming more popular now?
So what I've seen trending in the industry now is green. A lot of green, a lot of blue, and these colors are more indicative of outside colors, so mean in nature, right? Because due to the coronavirus and the pandemic, we were kind of, that freedom was taken from us, right? So we're now secluded in our homes. And what we're trying to do now, since we are secluded in our home still, is try to incorporate nature in our home, right? So how do we incorporate nature in our home? We do that with paint colors. We can do that with bringing in plants into the space. We can do that by making spaces that are a little bit more fun, like fun spaces, breakout spaces. But primarily, we're going to want to do this by introducing like the more green and the blue color scapes. And then we're also going to want to, you can also do something called like sound amplifiers, which are another great thing that you can incorporate into your projects too. And I would definitely say all of those things I've seen trending specifically just because of the pandemic and what's going on right now, and especially like with air quality. And that's where like soundproofing comes in, and then soundproofing goes to like air purifiers. So there's definitely a lot of trends, like more bringing nature indoors is what I've been seeing in the last year in the industry.
You said sound amplifiers. What does that mean?
So soundproofing is something where we can say you're in an open space. We can add a sound acoustic piece over you so that it creates a private space for you, even though you're in an open space. So we can try to say you're in an office space that has an open plan, right? And you need a space to collaborate with your team of 6, right? So we can walk off to the right, and to the right, maybe there's a conference table, but there's no walls around you. But above your head, there's an acoustic piece that helps to drown out the sound around you. So once you're sitting under that acoustic piece, you can basically just hear the conversation of the person next to you, or the conversation that you're having with the 6 people that you're meeting with, versus the conversation of everyone in the entire space. So there's different ways that you can make, basically, like you can make a space in a space, really. So if we have, and a lot of spaces too, typically just to help save on construction fees and preventing putting drywall, a lot of spaces will be just a shell, right? And there is no drywall, there is no walls. Sometimes they're just completely open. Like if we're looking in commercial real estate aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And what we can do in that aspect is we can start breaking out spaces based on what you need it for. So like a collaboration space, personal meeting space, a breakout space, just really depends on like what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, in this industry, it's becoming a lot more popular to introduce solutions that can be modified, that can be moved, right? Or we can break them down and take them with us if we move somewhere else once our lease ends, right? Instead of, all right, let's invest $150,000 and put in all this drywall, and in 3 years our lease is going to end and we're going to move and go somewhere else and start all over again. So what I found too, what's very super popular is items that can be broken down and taken to a new space.
What are you still seeing? I know, like, I feel like when you watch HGTV, everything's about opening up the space. And if you go back to the 90s or 80s, everything was closed off. And then I think it went all the way to the right where, I jokingly said that they're going to start building houses with one room. Are you starting to see it swing back at all or in that sense, or is everyone still looking for as much open space as possible?
I would say, especially due to the pandemic, everybody's looking for as much open space as possible. And not only indoors, but outdoors too. So we've seen a lot of growth with people leaving the city and moving out to the suburbs just because they've got, they've got a yard, they've got a driveway, and it's kind of like going through this whole pandemic stage and living through this. I really honestly, in my opinion, don't think when you do grow up in the city and you are in a small condo, after going through something like this where you are trapped inside for a very long time and you don't have any like access to outdoor personal space, that's something that you're definitely going to strive and look for. So I would say that I've seen a lot of properties now too where the concept is very open. And I've also seen like a big push when it comes to basically like suburb living, just because they offer, you have your backyard available to you. And as I mentioned, a driveway and just really nice accommodations to have when you're not used to having it. And you kind of had to go through not having it for 3 years and being, trapped inside. It's going through the pandemic.
No, it's amazing how much the pandemic is still affecting a lot of our decisions, a lot of things that we do, and just the change in life everywhere. Even on the property management side, the amount of people that wanted roommates, the amount of people that wanted to be alone, and now we're seeing just the change, and it's kind of a constant flow still from, studios being more popular because everyone wanted to be isolated to now, hey, I'm going to move back in with my family. So we need something that can hold my mom and my dad and as well as me and as well as my kids. So, it's crazy to think that we're, in 2023, the pandemic happened in 2020, but I don't think the effects are going to go away for a very long time. So, open space and the outdoors, that sounds like something that I would want to live in as well and be able to enjoy. I know you do a lot of luxury stuff. What are some things? A lot of times we see things in luxury apartments or luxury condos that eventually the more popular they get, the cost goes down, and then we start to see them more in B class and C class apartments. Anything trending in the luxury area that you could see being used more in the B and C class eventually in the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, definitely. So I would say focal point walls. So any of those walls that you can come in and basically do like a shiprep on them, or you can do a custom wood detail. That I've seen, it's very popular and it's very cost effective too. If you're laying it out yourself, if you've got a design, and now Home Depot makes it, Lowe's has it available. So It's very easy to access. It's very cost effective, and you could definitely put it in yourself. And the nice thing about a focal point wall is it really makes the space, right? Without having to paint it something, like a strong color. You don't need anything like that. You could go in very neutral, and maybe you could do that back wall, leave it the natural wood, and stain it a walnut. And it looks great. Walnut looks great next to any furniture, anything that they're going to add in there. And that piece, it's like I said, it's very cost effective and requires minimal work, really just sitting down, working out the design, making sure your measurements are accurate to put in all your pieces. And if you have a contractor and you're working with your contractor, they can tell you right away. Once you put up your drawing, and if something's not accurate or off or it's not going to work, that they should let you know. And also, too, like what's really good about those, making sure you do your site visits, right? So if they are starting to build it the wrong way, you can stop them and have them start over, or stop before it turns into a mess that you can't figure out a way to fix to make it look a little better.
Awesome. I'm going to begin to wrap up a little bit, but any other trends that we should know about, or anything else that you can think of for investors to be thinking about when they're designing their space?
Yeah, I would always suggest trying to be as sustainable as possible when you're going about, working and modifying these properties and adding your things in there. Just make sure that you don't need to completely gut and rip everything out, right? Sometimes there are things in there that they can be utilized or they can be reused. Sometimes they just need a little TLC, right? A little extra love and cleaning, and they're fine, and you can definitely utilize them. So really try to be, as wasteless as possible is my most important, thing at the end of the day, because our landfills just have so much waste that, and a lot of times it's we could have completely avoided it if we would have not completely ripped out all that cabinetry that didn't need to be ripped out, or instead of completely throwing away that HVAC, can you scrap it? Just finding like the best ways to discard of things. You don't need to throw everything away. And this is coming from somebody with a luxury background. Like, if you can reutilize it, utilize it. Don't waste it. Because oftentimes too, really like the staple of the project ends up being, that piece that you found that you were able to save and refurbish, and you might not think too much of it, but every single person that comes in to view that property when they're looking to buy or they're looking to rent it, they've complimented on it. And a lot of those pieces are like, what I found really simple is, even like restoring a light fixture and putting it in your entry area. Instead of spending $500, I would go Facebook Marketplace, buy one for $35, completely wash it, take it all apart, spray paint it, clean everything, put it back on. And I've gotten at least like 40 compliments on that light fixture, and it was $35, and it took 2 weeks of work.
No, that's awesome. And I think too, one of my biggest nightmares is, I believe Chicago, one of the things that makes it so great is a lot of the architecture and a lot of the old school buildings, and just the craftsmanship, the woodwork, the masonry work that we have in this city. And we're slowly starting to see that go away and everything become a square box and just straight lines. And it's sort of sad to see. I've had a nightmare that, I would leave the city for a couple of years and come back and the whole city would be unrecognizable. I think even if you are updating, if you are doing a gut, keeping some of that, whether it be some of the trim pieces, like you said, the light fixtures from the olden days, or even just some of the nice design of the outside of these buildings, is truly what makes Chicago a beautiful city when you're driving through it. And some of these older buildings are just insanely beautiful. And I hope that we can keep that structure around in this city for a very long time.
Yeah, and the great thing about being in the city of Chicago too is we do have a lot of laws in place for things like that to restore them. And there's grants that you can apply for that you can also utilize towards the construction of your property. If and a lot of times it's not optional. You do have to go the restoration route, and you have to go specific and certain ways to do things, which can be more expensive. But preserving what we already have, I think, is a great way to really make sure that the history of Chicago stays thriving, right? Because the architecture history of Chicago is derived from Greek architecture. So everything, the Greek key, the tongue and egg, the cantus leaf, all of it, it's all downtown everywhere. Our keystones are everything. It's all based off of their architecture. And for us to still be implementing it today and to try to restore it and show it for all its beauty, I think is one of the greatest things, because it helps to preserve that beautiful part of the historical part of being in the city of Chicago. A lot of places, they don't have rules and regulations where you do have to restore things to keep them to what they were. So it's really nice being in a city and having property like that and being able to utilize like all of the different antique stores across, different states and different cities, and being able to work with a grant writer and understanding that process. And yeah, it's really great. Like I have, invested in new property in the city and invested in old, and I couldn't say, I like one over the other, but I really do. It's something about restoring things, that bringing life back to something and people to notice it again, that to me is what's really special. Because like that light fixture that we restored, simply got overlooked. But now that it's had a little spruce up, it's like, it's crazy how much attention it grabs. Like people walk past our home and they look inside and they're like, where'd you get that light? Is it original to the house? And I'm like, no, it is not.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, if you're not from Chicago, or if you are from Chicago and you haven't done this yet, you need to do it. But if you're visiting Chicago and it's during warmer months, spring, early fall, or summer, the architecture boat tours that we have here are just incredible, and it's a ton of information and just a good time and something really cool to do if you're in the city. Besides our great food and all that, is to take that architecture tour on the river. With that being said, I think we're going to start wrapping up here. Robin, if someone wants to hire you to come and help them design their interior space, how do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me on Instagram, and my handle is Robin, ROBIN _ Nicole, NICOLE _ interiors with an S. And you can check out all my work there. If you have any questions, please feel free to send me questions through there too. And yeah, I look forward to reaching out to anyone who needs any assistance with interior design.
Awesome. I want to thank you again for coming on. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. You just listened to the Landlording Show. Please subscribe, whether you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify or any of the other platforms where podcasts can be found, and leave us a 5-star review if you liked what you heard. Robin, again, thank you for being on the show, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.